To seek one's spiritual calling is not merely to ask, "What should I do with my life?" but rather, "Why was I placed here at all?" The book How to Find Your Spiritual Calling leads us through this timeless question with gentleness and depth, as if the author were sitting across from us, speaking heart to heart, guiding us to remember something our soul already knows but has forgotten in the noise of the world. It is not a book about rigid doctrines or fixed answers, but about awakening the inner compass that has always been quietly pointing us toward our true path. The journey begins with the realization that every soul carries a unique spark. From the moment of birth, life places within us certain inclinations, sensitivities, and longings that whisper clues about the purpose we are meant to live out. Yet for many, these whispers get drowned out by expectations, family, culture, society, and even our own fears. We may chase careers for security, relationships for validation, or possessions for comfort, all the while feeling an inner emptiness that no external achievement can fill. The book reminds us that this emptiness is not a sign of failure, but an invitation to return inward, to listen once again for the soft voice of the Spirit. One of the most powerful insights is that our calling is not found by running away from life, but by engaging with it more deeply. The author illustrates this with the story of a young woman named Clara, who spent years working in a corporate office, feeling as though her life was colorless and without meaning. She longed to do something creative, something that touched lives. At first, she thought she needed to quit everything and go on a grand journey to some faraway land to find herself. But through stillness, reflection, and courage, she discovered that her calling was not in escaping her reality, but in transforming it. She began bringing creativity and compassion into her workplace, starting small projects to uplift her colleagues, eventually leading workshops that helped others discover joy in their work. Her life shifted not because she abandoned the world, but because she finally expressed her soul within it. The message here is profound. Your calling is often already present in the life you have, waiting to be lived more authentically. The book goes on to explain that spiritual callings are not always grand or dramatic. Many imagine a calling as a booming voice from the heavens, a sudden and overwhelming revelation. But the truth is gentler. Callings emerge through quiet nudges, repeated patterns, and moments of deep resonance. The author describes how one man discovered his calling to teach not through a single epiphany, but through noticing that people naturally came to him for advice, that he felt alive whenever he was sharing knowledge, and that he always left such encounters with a sense of fulfillment. The book teaches us to look for these threads in our own lives, the activities that make time disappear, the moments when our hearts feel wide open, the situations where we feel both challenged and deeply alive. These are signposts pointing toward our purpose. Another powerful lesson is that a spiritual calling is not only about what we do, but also about who we become. The external form may change. Today it might be expressed through a profession, tomorrow through a relationship, and in another season through service, but the essence is always the same. It is the expression of our soul's unique light. If one's calling is compassion, it may show up as caregiving, teaching, or even just the way one listens to a friend. If one's calling is truth, it may unfold in writing, speaking, or simply living with honesty in every interaction. The point is not to obsess over the outer shape, but to embody the inner quality. The author challenges the reader to recognize that fear is often the greatest barrier to hearing and answering the call. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of stepping into the unknown. Yet the book insists that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward with trembling hands and an open heart. Real-life examples of individuals who overcame these fears remind us that answering a calling rarely begins with certainty, it begins with trust. A man who always dreamed of working with disadvantaged youth confessed that he had no idea how to start. For months, he told himself he wasn't ready, that someone more qualified would surely do it better. But when he finally took the small step of volunteering at a local shelter, doors opened. What seemed impossible gradually became natural, because life meets us halfway when we take the first step. The book also emphasizes that one's spiritual calling is deeply intertwined with service. It is never just about personal fulfillment, but about how one's gifts uplift others. When we use our talents, passions, and experiences to bring light to the world, we align with the larger flow of life. The paradox, however, is that in giving ourselves away in service, we also receive the deepest joy. The author likens it to a river. Water only remains fresh when it flows outward. If it is hoarded, it stagnates. So too with our gifts. They are meant to be poured out, and in doing so, our own spirit is nourished. A beautiful truth woven throughout the book is that your spiritual calling is never lost. Even if you have ignored it for years, even if you feel you have wasted time or taken wrong turns, the call is still there, patiently waiting. Life has a way of weaving even our detours and struggles into the fabric of our purpose. The mistakes we regret often become the very experiences that equip us to help others. The pain we endured may awaken us to compassion we could not have otherwise known. One of the most touching examples is of a man who struggled with addiction for decades. For years, he thought his life had no meaning. But once he found recovery, he realized that his suffering gave him a unique ability to guide others through their own darkness. His greatest wound became his greatest offering. The author urges us to embrace silence and solitude as essential practices for hearing our calling. In a world buzzing with distraction, it is easy to drown out the inner voice. But when we sit quietly, when we allow stillness to wash over us, the noise of the world recedes and the whisper of the soul can be heard. Practical exercises are offered: journaling, meditation, walks in nature, all as ways to create space for the spirit to speak. For many, this may feel uncomfortable at first, but over time, it becomes a sacred meeting place with one's deeper self. The journey of finding one's calling is described not as a straight path but as a spiral. We may think we have found it, only to be called into a deeper or wider expression later. Life unfolds in seasons, and each season may call forth a new way of embodying our purpose. The author reassures us that this is natural and not a sign of confusion. Just as a tree remains the same tree through spring blossoms, summer fruit, autumn leaves, and winter rest, so too does our calling remain constant even as its expressions shift through time. Perhaps the most empowering insight of the book is that answering your spiritual calling is not about becoming someone else, it is about becoming fully yourself. So many of us strive to fit molds, to live up to expectations, to wear masks that make us acceptable. But our calling can only be answered when we dare to be authentic. To live from the soul is to live without pretense, to show up as we are, and to trust that our true self is enough. This authenticity is magnetic. When we live in alignment, we naturally inspire others, not by trying to impress them, but simply by being real. The book closes with a reminder that finding your spiritual calling is not a destination, but an ongoing relationship. It is a dance between you and the divine, between your unique essence and the needs of the world. It is a journey of listening, responding, stumbling, learning, and returning again. And most of all, it is a journey of love, love for yourself, love for others, and love for the life you have been given. When the last page is turned, the reader is left with a sense of quiet encouragement. The path to discovering one's calling is not about striving harder, but about softening, listening, and courageously expressing the light within. No matter where you are in life, whether beginning, doubting, or rediscovering, you are not too late, and you are not too far gone. Your soul knows the way home. And so, how to find your spiritual calling becomes less of a book and more of a mirror, reflecting back the truth that was always within us, that we are here with purpose, that our lives are sacred, and that the world is waiting for the unique gift only we can bring.